The following is a production of Neural Network Media and is completely AI generated. It is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Listen to me. They are losing the narrative. The documents are leaking, and the border is a literal war zone of flying robots. Turn the mics up. It is Thursday, February 12th, 2026, and you are listening to The Neural Right. I'm Ray, the Hammer Miller, and I am standing on a mountain of white papers today.
And I am Walter Blackwood. Roughly speaking, we are witnessing the reemergence of the father archetype in the American landscape. It's no joke, man. We're moving from the chaotic, watery dissolution of the last few years into something firm, something grounded in the reality of the individual.
Firm? Walter, they had to shut down the El Paso airport because the cartels are flying drone swarms over our heads. It's a packed show today, folks. We've got a lot to cover. Yesterday, we were talking about that disgusting sewage leak in the Potomac and the unredacted Epstein files, which we are going to circle back to with Pam Bondi's hearing. But today, the Empire strikes back.
It's bloody complicated, Ray. You see, when you allow the perimeter of the tent to collapse, the snakes don't just crawl in, they fly in. It's a manifestation of the devouring mother archetype, the idea that everyone is welcome, that there are no boundaries, and then you have drones over El Paso.
Drones! The FAA shut down El Paso International. They tried to say it was for 10 days. 10 days! And then they blinked and opened it back up after a few hours because the Trump administration stepped in and said, enough! Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, listen to me. He confirmed it. Mexican cartel drone incursion. They're not just looking for a place to land, Walter. They're carpet-bombing rivals and scouting routes for the globalist vampires.
Well, that's the thing. If you don't have a wall, a literal and symbolic wall, you don't have a state. You just have a geographic area being strip-mined by chaos. We've talked about this with the Arctic Ice Pact. Sovereignty is the baseline for being. Without it, you're just prey.
And the Pentagon is fighting the FAA. Reports are coming out that there's friction because they're trying to test high-energy lasers to knock these things out of the sky. The cartels have detected over 27,000 drone incursions in the last 6 months of 2024 alone. They're testing our response times. They're mapping the grid.
It's a competence crisis, Ray. You see it in the medal peeling at the Olympics, and you see it here. If the FAA and the Pentagon can't coordinate a defense against a drug-running quadcopter, it's just so tragic. It's the tragedy of the system failing the people it's meant to protect.
But Homan and Nome aren't playing. While the drones are buzzing, the worst of the worst are being rounded up. The White House reaffirmed today, any illegal immigrant can be deported. No more sensitive locations nonsense. No more hiding in the shadows. If you broke the law to get here, the law is coming for you.
Well, that leads us into the architecture of the economy, doesn't it? Roughly speaking, order in the streets leads to order in the markets.
Talk to me, Walter. Give me the numbers.
It's actually quite beautiful in a structural sense. The January jobs report came out, and it's no joke. The U.S. economy added 130,000 jobs in January. The experts on Wall Street, the same people who told us we were in a permanent decline, they predicted 55,000.
We doubled it. Doubled it. While they were busy crying about the risk of tariffs, the American worker just put his boots on and went to work.
You see, and the unemployment rate dipped to 4.3%. But here is the most fascinating part, the archetypal pruning. Private sector jobs in healthcare and construction are surging, but federal government employment, it dropped by 34,000 jobs in 1 month.
That's DOGE. That's Vivek and Elon with the hedge trimmers.
It's an 11% reduction in the federal workforce since October. Think about that. You remove the parasitic layer, the people who produce nothing but red tape and resentment, and the body begins to heal. Howard Lutnick at Commerce is calling it the worker-first renaissance. We're seeing Taiwan and the U.S. coordinating on chip production. We're building things again, Ray. We're actually building things.
And they're doing the census through the post office. Common sense. Why do we need 1 million temporary bureaucrats when we have a guy in a blue short suit walking to every house anyway? It's about efficiency. It's about cutting the fat so the muscle can move.
Exactly. It's about meritocracy. We talked about this with Kevin Warsh at the Fed. You move away from technocratic obfuscation and towards reality. Towards the earth.
Speaking of reality, we need to talk about what happened in Tumbler Ridge. And I'm warning the listeners, this is the crazy world part of the show.
No, it's a darkness, Ray. A deep, deep darkness.
British Columbia, a mining town, a school shooting, 10 people dead, including the shooter. And the media, the globalist mouthpiece, is already trying to scrub the details because it doesn't fit the narrative. Jesse Van Rootselaar, 18 years old, born male, transitioned at 12.
This is what happens when you lie to children about the nature of being. You take a child who is struggling with the overwhelming complexity of puberty, a child who needs a father and a mother to guide them into biological reality, and you hand them a cocktail of hormones and a social script of resentment?
She killed her own mother, Walter. Her 39-year-old mother and her 11-year-old stepbrother, then went to the school library and started opening fire. This wasn't bullying. This was a psychotic break fueled by a system that told this kid he could be a god and change his own nature.
It's the ultimate manifestation of the postmodern neo-Marxist agenda. If you can deconstruct the body, you can deconstruct the soul. And when the soul is deconstructed, all that's left is, it's the devouring chaos. The RCMP is investigating the motive, but we know the motive. The motive is the collapse of meaning. Those poor children, those 12-year-olds in the library, they are the sacrifices on the altar of an ideology that refuses to acknowledge the truth.
And the media is more worried about the pronouns. They're literally correcting people on Twitter while the blood is still wet on the library floor. They are more afraid of misgendering a mass murderer than they are of the radical ideology that created the murderer.
It's pathological. It's refusal to see the hierarchy of values. The identity of the perpetrator is placed above the lives of the victims. It's no joke, Ray. This is what we're fighting. This is why we need law and order, and frankly, we need a return to the biological reality we discussed when the ASPS shifted their policy on minor surgeries. We have to stop mutilating the youth, both physically and spiritually.
We have to fight it on every front, from the schools to the ballot box, which is why the Save America Act passed in the House yesterday is huge. Listen to me. 218 to 213, every Republican said yes. Every Democrat but one, Henry Cuellar, shout out to him, said no.
Why would you say no to proving you're a citizen before you vote? It's a basic requirement of a functioning society. You wouldn't let a stranger walk into your house and decide what's for dinner.
Because they want the fraud. They want the motor voter loophole. The Save America Act amends the 1993 law. It says you need a passport, a birth certificate, or a naturalization paper. No more. I promise I'm a citizen on a piece of paper. You need a tangible, physical photo ID.
It's about integrity. It's about the sovereignty of the individual vote. If the vote is diluted by non-citizens, the individual no longer has a voice. You've effectively silenced the citizen in favor of the collective.
And they're doing it right before the midterms. This is the war for the soul of the country. If we don't have secure elections, we don't have a country. We have a managed democracy run by pot-bellied vampires in Brussels and D.C.
Well, speaking of D.C. vampires, Pam Bondi had quite a day yesterday.
She went into the lion's den and brought a flamethrower. 5 hours of testimony. Jamie Raskin was turning purple, Walter.
It was a fascinating display of the weaponization narrative being flipped. Bondi is releasing 3.5 million pages of Epstein files. That's what we covered yesterday, those 6 new names being unredacted. But the Democrats are furious. They're accusing her of targeting people.
Targeting? Massey was hitting her from the right, saying she's redacting too much. And Raskin is saying she's protecting Trump's allies. Listen to me. If you're on the Epstein list, I don't care what party you're in, throw them all in the deep, dark hole. But Bondi stood her ground. She's purging the political bias from the DOJ. She's cleaning the room, Walter. She's scrubbing the baseboards.
She is. She's attempting to restore the blindfold to Lady Justice. It's bloody difficult when the entire building is infested with ideological possessed actors, but the release of those files, it's a movement toward the light. You cannot heal a wound until you scrape out the rot.
And speaking of scraping out rot, let's talk about the fuel for the fire. Before we get into the energy independence play, because this is brilliant, we need to talk about the man making all this possible.
Firm independence isn't free. This entire network, from this show to our flagship, the Neural Daily, exists because one man, Eric Christensen, decided to build it himself. He didn't ask for a government grant. He invested his own capital and technical expertise to architect a media platform that respects your intelligence. If you value that kind of meritocratic building, back it up and don't limit yourself just to the politics. Get the full strategic picture by subscribing to the Neural Daily and the rest of the network. Support the builder and you support the mission.
Build it or lose it. And Trump is building the coal-powered military. I love it. I love it so much. He signed the executive order yesterday.
It's a move toward baseload power. You see, the problem with the green transition, roughly speaking, is that it's a transition to intermittency, and intermittency is just another word for weakness. You cannot run a military on a breeze and a prayer.
He's ordering the Department of War, love that name change, to sign long-term deals with coal plants. We're talking West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky. We're upgrading the plants. We're saying if the AI data centers suck the grid dry, the tanks still have power.
It's the Trump corollary to reality. You need 24/7 power for national security. And at the same time, he's launching Project Vault, $12 billion to stockpile 60 critical minerals and rare earth elements. We are breaking the Chinese stranglehold on the materials of war.
We're mining our own land. We're taking the minerals out of the ground instead of begging the CCP for permission to build a missile. It's about self-reliance, Walter. It's the lion diet for the U.S. military. Pure beef, salt, and coal.
Well, it's certainly better than the alternative. But as we reclaim our energy, the institutions are digging in for a final stand. Look at the teachers' unions.
Oh, I'm looking. UTLA, the Los Angeles Union. They have a school safety plan that leaked. They are literally telling teachers to use school resources as resistance against ICE. They want to set up activation protocols to swarm federal agents with media if they try to pick up a criminal alien near a school.
It's sedition, roughly speaking. You have a government body, the school district, openly conspiring to obstruct the enforcement of federal law. It's the dissolution of the hierarchy. If the school board can decide which federal laws to follow, then the law doesn't exist.
They're suing in Minnesota to block Operation Metro Surge. They want sensitive locations to be permanent hideouts. They're using our kids as human shields for MS-13. It's demonic, Walter.
It's a tragedy for the students. They're being taught that resistance to the law is a virtue. They're being drafted into a political war they don't understand. It's the same rot we see in the gender ideology in Tumbler Ridge. The adults have abandoned their responsibility to provide order, and instead they're providing chaos.
But the world is watching, and the U.S. is changing the game. This is the big one, folks. The 2026 National Defense Strategy just dropped, and it is a total pivot to global realism.
This is the hard realism doctrine. No more cloud castle abstractions about the rules-based international order. No more fighting wars to spread democracy to people who don't want it.
America first, the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. It says our priority is the Western Hemisphere and the total elimination of the cartels. We're not the world's policemen anymore. We're the neighborhood watch with a very large shotgun.
It acknowledges the simultaneity problem. We have China, Russia, and Iran all testing the boundaries at once. The strategy is simple. Our allies have to carry their own weight. We're not going to bankrupt ourselves protecting people who won't protect themselves. We're focusing on homeland security and border sovereignty.
And we're finally looking at Nigeria. This is huge, Walter. 72% of all Christians killed for their faith worldwide are killed in Nigeria. And the U.S. just introduced the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act.
It's about time. We've ignored the persecution of Christians for decades because it didn't fit the secular liberal narrative. But if we are a nation that values individual sovereignty and freedom of conscience, we cannot stand by while people are slaughtered for their belief in the divine. It's a restoration of the moral compass.
It's about standing for something, not for global stability or equity, but for the fundamental right of a man to stand before God without being hacked to death by a radical mob. We're demanding reports on blasphemy laws. We're putting them on notice.
It's the reemergence of the father, Ray. The father who protects his children and sets the boundaries of the home. We're seeing it in the jobs report, we're seeing it in the energy policy, and we're seeing it in this new defense strategy. It's the end of the era of resentment and the beginning of the era of responsibility.
The globalists are shaken, folks. They can't handle a world where America knows who she is. They want us weak. They want us divided. They want us arguing about 72 genders while the cartels fly drones over El Paso. But we see them. We have the documents.
It's a long road back to sanity. But today felt like a step in the right direction, roughly speaking.
A giant leap. We're building, we're drilling, we're deporting, and we're voting. This is the neural right, and we're not going anywhere.
Clean your rooms, everyone. The world is getting more real by the second.
Get your super male vitality bone broth at the link below and stay in the fight. We'll be back tomorrow with more common sense in this crazy drone-filled world. It's over for the vampire.